others. Does that mean that they would have to drop the genocide case as well? Because South Africa is the one that brought the genocide case to the ICJ concerning the Gaza Strip and Israel. Does this lack of taking taking no action against Israel or the US via the ICC, ICJ, or others? I wonder if that means they have to drop that ongoing case.
Next up is point 10, which includes some waffle about Trump's economic development plan. Point 11 then says that Gaza will become a special economic...
Israel is part of the ICJ, but not the ICJ. Every country is technically part of the ICJ, because the ICJ is the International Court of Justice, which is part of the United Nations. So every country is subject to the ICJ or whatever.
Zone with which includes some waffle about Trump's economic development plan. Point 11 then says that Gaza will become a special economic zone with preferential tariff rates. Point 12 addresses the question of Palestinians being forced...
Special economic zone as, like, to the US or to the world, or...
...possibly expelled from Gaza, which is something that Israel has been accused of considering.
Going to be forced to leave Gaza, and those who wish to leave will be free to do so and free to return. That last part here is really important if you're worried about them getting kicked out forever.
Insisting that, quote, no one will be forced to leave Gaza, and those who wish to leave will be free to do so and free to return. Point 13 then basically says that Hamas must agree not to have any role in Gaza's post-war governance structure and its total demilitarization. Points 14 and 15 then basically say that Gaza's Arab neighbors will lead a new international coalition called the International Stabilization Force.
What does that mean? Does that mean no prior Hamas members are allowed to be part of the role in Gaza governance? Because everybody that's part of the current government would be Hamas, so you'd basically be disbarring every single current government official from being part of the new government, no? I wonder what that means.
Or ISF, that will essentially become responsible for security inside the Strip. Point 16 says the ISF will gradually take over from the IDF, who will eventually only be responsible for security along Gaza's borders with Israel and Egypt. Interestingly, point 17 says that this will happen even if Hamas rejects the deal. In other words, this Arab-led coalition would apparently replace the IDF, whatever happens. Points 18, 19, and 20 then basically say that Palestinians, Israel, and the US will work together towards peaceful coexistence and, quote, a credible pathway to Palestinian self-determination and statehood, which we recognize as the aspiration of the Palestinian people. At first glance, this looks like a meaningful concession from Netanyahu.
It doesn't. It looks like an Oslo Accords 3. Except worse for the Palestinian. I don't... Is there more writing about what any of these points mean? This is like worse than the Clinton parameters. What? I don't know what the fuck. Gaza will be governed under the temporary transitional governance of a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee responsible for delivering the day-to-day running of public... Oh, so it will be administrative. Public services municipalities will be built in Gaza. This committee will be made up of qualified Palestinians and international experts with oversight and supervision by a new international transitional body, the Board of Peace, which will be headed and chaired by President Donald J. Trump, with other members and heads of state to be announced. Like, does this mean by the United States president or just by, like, Trump personally? How do you have an apolitical government? Yeah, what does that mean? This body will set the framework and handle the funding for the redevelopment of Gaza until such time as the Palestinian Authority's completed its reform program as outlined in various proposals. What proposals? Including President Trump's peace plan in 2020 and the Saudi-French proposal, and can securely and effectively take back control of Gaza. This body will call on the best international standards to create modern and efficient governance that serves the people of Gaza and is conducive to attracting investment. Wow, the best. Okay. Okay, just whatever.
Yahoo, who has previously ruled out the idea of a Palestinian state. But it's worth noting that this includes no concrete commitments, merely a recognition from Israel and the US that it's the aspiration of the Palestinian people. So could this deal actually bring eternal peace to the Middle East? Well, at first glance, there seems to be a cause for optimism. Israel has made at least some superficial concessions, and the deal has been well received internationally. The UK...
A guide to Trump's 20-point Gaza peace plan. Okay, there could be a ceasefire, military drawdown. The White House plan indicates future withdrawals to around 40% and 15% of Gaza territory. The final stage keeps a security perimeter until Gaza is secure from any resurgent terror threat. What is a security perimeter? Isn't that just the border? Isn't that already a security perimeter? Is Israel eating even more of the Gaza Strip? I feel like this just looks like Oslo 3 to me. No, am I crazy? Like they've got like their area, like this is your new Area C kind of, except I guess no Jews are moving in, right? Let's see, we've got a prisoner swap. Plan to send full aid without interference. Troop deployment. The Rafah crossing with Egypt has been open for aid delivery. European officials confirmed with a small Israeli troop presence remains there. The United States will send... Long term, Trump's 20-point plan stipulates that no Palestinians will be militarily forced to leave Gaza. What does that mean? Militarily forced to leave Gaza, and that Israel will agree not to occupy or annex the Gaza Strip. Long term, the enclave will be redeveloped for the benefit of the people of Gaza, who have suffered more than enough. The plan reads, at the same time, Gaza must be a de-radicalized, terror-free zone that does not pose a threat to its neighbors. This is I don't know what de-radicalized means. Like, are they going to be attacking, like, Islam or the religion? Or is this going to be like a secular zone? Obviously they wouldn't do that, but I'm curious. I feel like you could define this in so many different ways. Keep in mind that our current administration defines the Democrats as a radical party in the U.S., right? So I don't know what the fuck this means. Temporary transitional governance of a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee, which will operate under an international board headed by Trump. The Board of Peace, as Trump calls it. What are these Palestinian Authority reforms? Are there any details on what that means? Okay, so basically, okay, what a waste of time. So this is just a shitty ceasefire. That's all this is. That's all. Okay, that's what we got here. It's a shitty ceasefire with nothing else that's really all about it.
UK, France, and Italy all expressed support for the plan, and the foreign ministers of Saudi Arabia, Jordan, the UAE, Indonesia, Pakistan, Turkey, Qatar, and Egypt released a joint statement, quote, welcoming Trump's plan. The fact that the Arab countries that would be expected to lead the ISF, like Egypt and Jordan, and relatively Hamas-friendly countries like Turkey and Qatar, have all reacted so positively does seem like a good sign. Nonetheless, familiar stumbling blocks do remain. Countries that would be expected to lead the ISF, like Egypt and Jordan, and relatively Hamas-friendly countries like Turkey and Qatar, have all reacted so positively does seem like a good sign. Relatively Hamas-friendly countries.
Some state of Pakistan, the Republic of Turkey, extend the war in Gaza, and assert their confidence in its ability to find a path to peace. It says the importance of the partnership with the U.S. in securing peace in the region. Along these lines, ministers welcome the announcement by President Trump regarding proposal to end the war, rebuild Gaza, prevent the displacement of Palestinians. Well, this announcement will not allow the annexation of the West Bank. The ministers affirm their readiness to engage positively and constructively with the United States and the parties towards finalizing the agreement and ensuring its implementation. So this agreement is not finalized yet, right? They reaffirm their joint commitment to work with the U.S. to end the war in Gaza. The comprehensive deal ensures unrestricted expression around this round for hostages. Economic integration for all sides. Full withdrawal, rebuilds Gaza and its path to the U.S. peace. On the basis of the two-state solution under which Gaza is fully integrated with the West Bank and a Palestinian state in accordance with international law, as key to achieving regional stability and security.
Countries like Turkey and Qatar have all reacted so positively does seem like a good sign. Nonetheless, familiar stumbling blocks do remain. Most obviously, this requires Hamas to accept their demilitarization for the good of ordinary Palestinians, which feels unlikely. Furthermore, the plan is remarkably vague. It isn't clear, for instance, what the precise relationship between the Palestinian government and the Trump-led Board of Peace will be. The deal text only tells us the board will, quote, set the framework, nor are there any concrete commitments vis-a-vis the Palestinian state, or any clarity on who could serve on the technocratic Palestinian committee. Would civil servants who served under Hamas, for instance, be excluded? Perhaps the most problematic is the lack of clear timetable for the IDF's promised withdrawal. This isn't in and of itself a bad thing. Lots of peace deals use vague language as a stepping stone to a better defined agreement, but it is a problem in this context. Perhaps the most problematic is the lack of clear timetable for the IDF's promised withdrawal. This isn't in and of itself a bad thing. Lots of peace deals use vague language as a stepping stone to a better defined agreement.
Is that true? I feel like when there's vague language, it's so people on both sides can exploit the vagueness. But maybe that's only with regards to the Israel-Palestine thing. Maybe in other parts of the world, maybe that's not the case.
But it is a problem in this context, because there's zero trust between Israel and Hamas would expect Israel to exploit this vagueness in the future. Netanyahu's comments since the deal's presentation won't have helped things either. On Monday evening, Netanyahu put out a video in Hebrew framing the deal as a diplomatic ploy, claiming that instead of Hamas isolating us, we isolated Hamas, and that, quote, the IDF will remain in most of the Strip. Netanyahu's comments were presumably an attempt to placate the far-right ministers, whom he relies on for his parliamentary majority. But this didn't work, and on Tuesday, Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich denounced the proposal as a, quote, resounding diplomatic failure. Furthermore, contrary to what recent headlines have implied, Israel's Arab neighbors have not actually said that they support the plan. Rather, they, quote, welcome Trump's efforts.
Yeah, this reads like a passive-aggressive, like... We're very happy that you're on the road to making a plan. We support your journey there. We
diplomatic failure. Furthermore, contrary to what recent headlines have implied, Israel's Arab neighbors have not actually said, quote, resounding diplomatic failure. Furthermore, contrary to what recent headlines have implied, Israel's Arab neighbors have not actually said that they support the plan. Rather, they, quote, welcome Trump's efforts.
Yeah, this reads like a passive-aggressive, like, we're very happy that you're on the road to making a plan. We support your journey there. We look forward to when you fully agreed with, international law. They put that term in there. Yeah, that's what this reads like.
Rather, they, quote, welcome Trump's efforts towards peace, but insist upon a comprehensive deal that includes, quote, full Israeli withdrawal and a two-state solution under which Gaza is fully integrated with the West Bank. This isn't explicitly guaranteed by the deal, and again, Netanyahu's comments won't have helped. Not only has Netanyahu claimed that the IDF will remain in most of the Strip, but he also reiterated his opposition to a Palestinian state, insisting, quote, it is not written in the agreement, and expressing skepticism that, quote, the leopard can change its spots. In other words, casting doubt on the idea of the Palestinian Authority ever taking control of Gaza, and thus the prospect of a unified Palestinian state covering both Gaza and the West Bank. Now, this isn't to say that the deal will necessarily fail, and Trump does deserve credit for squeezing out at least some concessions from Netanyahu. Nonetheless, history doesn't bode well here, and familiar obstacles are already rearing their heads. Ultimately, we live in a world where growing geopolitical and economic issues like this are hitting headlines every
Glad you're watching SitCon in an hour. Looking forward to it. What the fuck is SitCon? What?
day. And while it's easy to sometimes feel overwhelmed, there are ways to stay sharp. And we know that the easiest way to do this is with Brilliant. That's because Brilliant teaches you by doing, using active learning techniques to train you in the principles behind otherwise complex subjects.
SitCon these nuts.
And ensuring you actually understand what's going on. With their ever-growing collection of lessons in topics ranging from maths to science to AI, there's plenty to get you started. Not only does each lesson offer a comprehensive mix of engaging problems and competitive features, but Brilliant also helps you stay consistent, keeping you motivated and excited to learn every single day. Take their newly updated science courses, for example. Here you can learn. Try clicking the...
Wow. Mainstream media is now asking everyone to denounce Tucker Carlson and real Candace Owens. But those two have been more understanding and sympathetic to Muslim Americans than all of mainstream media combined for my whole life. So why don't we start by denouncing national media first? Dude, Cenk and Anna are just lost. Israel really does rot the mind, or like Jew shit just like rots people's brains. Holy fuck. Trump said to tell Prime Minister Netanyahu, intense phone call after Hamas responded to Gaza deal, "You're always so fucking negative. This is a win." Base. Trump has no idea what is or isn't a win for the Middle East. He's retarded. He doesn't know anything about anything. Why do I keep saying this? It's obvious. Okay. Yeah, I saw this. This is just wild.
About like, yes, we're gonna surveil everybody. Everyone will be on their best behavior. Yes, you're a freak. You're a total creep.
Okay.
All right. I'm talking about like, yeah.
Based.
Illinois and the city of Chicago are filing a lawsuit against the Trump administration over deployments of National Guard troops. Joining us now to comment, White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, Stephen Miller. We have a lot to get to, Stephen, including the government shutdown. Thank you so much for joining us, by the way. You've called the district judge's ruling blocking the deployment of National Guard in Oregon legal insurrection. Does the administration still plan to abide by that ruling?
Well, the administration filed an appeal this morning with the Ninth Circuit. I would note the administration won an identical case in the Ninth Circuit just a few months ago with respect to the federalizing of the California National Guard. Under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has plenary authority.
Stephen? Stephen? Hey, Stephen, can you hear me?
Wait, they didn't edit this clip out. Other guys said they did.
It seemed, Stephen, I apologize. It seems like we're having a technical issue. We'll
Or did they shorten the clip? Was it longer originally?
try to fix that and get back to you after a quick break. Stay with CNN. We're back out live with White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, Stephen Miller. Stephen, I sincerely apologize for that technical difficulty. It seems like some wires got crossed.
No, he's in the middle of a sentence. It doesn't make sense. Why would they make him stop talking? Honestly, like, is it maybe weird? Like, there is a reasonable explanation. I hate to give it. But, like, there is a reasonable explanation. It's because when the thing goes out, they might tell you on the earpiece, hold on, we lost you. And so you'll sit and wait, right? That is a reasonable explanation. But also, fuck these guys, so who knows?
You were describing the president's legal authority as you see it under Title 10. My question was whether the administration still plans to abide by that judge's order restricting any National Guard troops from being sent to Oregon.
Well, the administration will abide by the ruling insofar as it affects the covered parties, but there are also many other options the president has to deploy federal resources and assets under the U.S. military to
Did you say ass whores?
But there are also many other options the president has to deploy federal resources and assets for the U.S. military to Portland. But I was making the point that under federal law, Section Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has the authority anytime he believes federal resources are insufficient to federalize the National Guard to carry out a mission necessary for public safety. So it's important to understand that in Portland, ICE officers have been subjected to over 100 nights of terrorist assault, doxing, murder threats, violent attack, and every other means imaginable to try to overturn the results of the last election through violence. The most important point I want to make today is that the number 1 and 2 items in the GOP platform in 2024 were to turn back the border invasion and carry out the largest deportation program in American history. Since Inauguration Day, there's been an orchestrated campaign of terrorism and violence against ICE officers. Of course, we saw the recent sniper attack against ICE officers. They're publishing their families' photos online, they're threatening them with murder, they're threatening them with death, and they're physically attacking them in the street each and every day. And yet, shamefully, the mayor and governor in Portland and Oregon have refused to render aid, leaving ICE officers to street fight every single night against these terrorists.
You make the claim of terrorist assaults and violence attack over 100 nights, and yet the judge overseeing this case says that that's untethered from reality. And local officials on the ground say that Trump's assertion of what's happening in Portland, that it's war-ravaged and burning to the ground, is far from true. I looked at the police data, and police have made something like 70 total arrests since June, and there are no reports of buildings being burned to the ground. The White House cited a guillotine being rolled out as like a public display of rebellion, but there isn't actually a threat that these demonstrators are going to overthrow the government. Are you concerned that that response weakens your legal argument?
They are actually, as we speak, trying to overthrow the core law enforcement function of the federal government. Of course, this is, I think, where we're talking past each other. When ICE officers have to street battle against Antifa, hand-to-hand combat every night to come and go from their building, when they try to exit in a vehicle, when they're swarmed and surrounded and they try to tip the vehicle over.
Is the Antifa in the room with you right now?
People bring weapons to an ICE facility to try to engage in direct violent assault against ICE officers. What is the purpose? It is to prevent immigration and customs enforcement from carrying out the mission the American people elected them to do. Their objective is to make it impossible for ICE to carry out ICE enforcement. When in our history have we tolerated unlawful riotous assemblies night after night around FBI buildings or ATF buildings or DEA buildings? This is the textbook definition.
This is the textbook definition, he's going to say, of insurrection. That's why he's so specific with his language when he's saying because remember, before, I don't know what insurrection means. I have no idea. I've never heard that word before. But now, remember the Paulson and Waud paper? I don't know if I read that on screen or not, but that I read was like 130 pages, goes into the historical definition. Remember the Supreme Court case, the Colorado Supreme Court case? Like, we know what insurrection is, right? And part of some of the important elements of insurrection is when you are engaged in violence or intimidation with a group or crowd of people, 1, 2, and then 3 is to prevent the government, the federal government, from carrying out its duties. That's what an insurrection is, as defined by the Colorado Supreme Court. I think Paulson and Waud, had one other element in there, but this is what he's going to say. He's going to say, this is a textbook insurrection, I think. Man, I hope he does say that, otherwise I just went on a whole rant for nothing.
Buildings, or ATF buildings, or DEA buildings. This is the textbook definition of domestic terrorism.
Fuck! He said domestic terrorism. He said insurrection earlier, though. Okay, fuck you.
Using the actual and imminent threat of violence to keep federal officials from doing their jobs.
What he's saying there, though, the words that he's speaking here, to prevent federal officials from doing their job, this is the insurrection definition. I don't know why they're like the terrorist one now, but...
Unless we send in troops and resources, then we will continue to believe